The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
All right, this was July 12th.
What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running, and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
This was 12 days later, July 24th.
You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
How does he go from July 12th being like that passionate about, I am running, to then, in recent weeks, I've decided that the best way forward is to drop out. Anyway, happy Friday, everybody. You know, honestly, I really don't even care. I'm glad he dropped out, mainly because I don't think that we should have set precedent re-electing somebody that old anyway. So I'm glad he dropped out, but I just think overall, you know, it's very hard for me to think that this stuff is kind of happening in real time and decisions are being made in real time. I mean, I really do think that there is a much more thought out process to this. And I will tell you one thing that I put together, which I thought would be interesting, is that, you know, I was really curious about the timing of that first debate, the one that happened a few weeks ago, which really started this entire process. So I was curious about the timing of that first debate compared to previous presidential debates. So I went into our good friend ChatGPT and I said, can you give me the dates going back as far as you can of the first presidential debates between the Republican and Democratic candidate up till recent? And so ChatGPT said, yes, in 1960, the first general election presidential debate was held on September 26th between Senator John F. Kennedy and President Richard Nixon. The next debate didn't take place until 1976, and that was on September 23rd, 1976, between Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. And then from there, so listen to this, 1980, Carter versus Reagan, October 28th, 1980. 84, Reagan versus Mondale, October 7th, 1984. 1988, Bush Sr. versus Michael Dukakis. Remember that dude? September 25th, 1988. 1992, Bush Sr. versus Clinton, October 11th, 1992. 1996, Clinton versus Dole, October 6th. 2000, Bush versus Gore, October 3rd. 2004, Bush versus Kerry, September 30th. 2008, McCain versus Obama, September 26th. 2012, Obama versus Mitt Romney, October 3rd. 2016, Trump versus Clinton, Hillary that is, September 26th. 2020, Trump versus Biden, September 29th. And then 2024, Trump versus Biden, June 27th. So think about that. Basically, every single debate in the history of the United States took place in either September or October, with the earliest being September 23rd. And so now here we have this debate taking place June 27th. You know, that's pretty interesting, I think. I really do. I think that's interesting. And the reason I think that took place is, you know, again, I've talked about this before. If you have ever experienced or spent time with an elderly person or an older person, whether that's your parents or grandparents or anybody really, you know, they don't wake up one day and all of a sudden you notice cognitive decline. I mean, it absolutely is a gradual process, but it's one that you notice. I mean, it's definitely one that I noticed with our dad. And again, so my point is, I think that the debate was put together. It was, you know, for a long time they were saying there's no way we're going to let Biden debate Trump because he'll get crushed, which he did. But I think they did that on purpose because they needed a mechanism and they needed a trigger to really be able to move him off of the ticket and move him off of the ballot. And I think that's what that debate was. They knew he would do terrible. if you remember when he gave the State of the Union address a few months ago, I mean, he definitely had incredible energy for that thing. So, a lot of people were commenting that they gave him something prior to that, but I don't think that was the case with this presidential debate. But again, I think that was all by design. I really do. I really think that, that was all by design to basically show the American public and anyone that they felt like they needed to, I guess, rally behind removing President Biden off the ticket that, hey, he definitely is older. Now, the only thing I don't understand about that, and again, I haven't been able to really make sense of this is, it's not like it would have been a embarrassment to Biden or a tarnish on his record or his legacy if he were to just drop out on his own. Months ago he could have been like, or even at the beginning of the year, he could have been like, I don't think I have it in me to run anymore. So I don't know if it's an ego thing for him and that's why they did it this way. To be honest, I don't think that's the case. I think for whatever political strategy they had, maybe they thought that it would cause, I don't know, a panic with people. And so maybe the first half of the year was so concentrated on going after President Trump as viscerally as they did, from all of the indictments to really all of the legal troubles. And who knows, maybe they thought like, hey, we'll get him with one of these and we won't have to worry about it. And we can keep Joe in the race and we can basically, continue that process because he'll win easily over, let's say, Nikki Haley or Vivek or whomever was going to be the Republican candidate, which without Trump, I don't even know who would have won that. So maybe that was why. Maybe they kept him kind of in it. And then as things got closer and closer and as we kept going, they realized, okay, it doesn't look like any of these legal proceedings against Trump is going to stick. And so we need to figure out a way to gracefully remove Biden, and maybe the solution of that wasn't him just stepping down. And so that's why the debate took place. Again, I'm predicating all of that on the fact that I just don't understand why the debate took place in June when every other debate starts in late September, unless it was a test and unless it was premeditated as a way to, potentially make a move. Who knows? Maybe, and I'll end with this. Maybe it was also like, okay, let's see if he does well. If he does well, we'll ride with Joe. Maybe that was part of the plan too. But again, it just doesn't make sense that the presidential debate took place, almost 3 months before it ever has before. That just doesn't make sense. So that makes me think some of this stuff was premeditated. Okay, moving on. President Biden did address the nation Wednesday night. I don't know. I watched it. It was a little weird. I definitely think the whole speech and everything was a little strange. His mannerisms were a little bit different. I will say there's a lot of chatter online about it, and I'm not even gonna bore you guys with what they're saying. But the one interesting thing, and I saw a video on this, this was actually very interesting. So he was moving his hands a lot, like basically lifting his hands up and kind of like flexing his fingers and really a lot of, talking with your hands. And then this video played, maybe like the past 15 Biden speeches, and he never really talked with his hands before. So I don't know. I did think that was interesting because I think at, especially an extended age, gosh, probably anything over 25 or 30. I think the way you speak and the way you talk with your hands and all of that probably is something that carries on with you. So anyway, that was interesting. There were things going around saying, wow, it looks like he got a tan while having COVID. It looks like he got taller while having COVID. Basically, people think that wasn't Biden and it was like a body double or something. That rumor's been going around for years now, that there's multiple Bidens. Who the heck knows? I don't even As much as I do like to think about that stuff, I don't like to think about that stuff. That's even a little too fringe for me. But I will say again, at the end of the day, it was a little odd. His eye contact with the camera was a little bit different this time. I did notice that. But anyway, all right, moving on. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the same day on Wednesday came to address Congress. You know, I was going to do a much more in-depth analysis of it, and I still might. I actually might try and see if I can pull my main man Elijah Kallenberg in over the weekend or early next week and see if we can kind of go point by point and have him give his analysis. But I will say overall, I did think that Netanyahu's speech was absolutely a string of lies that he put together. I really did. You know, there were so many things. You know, he started out talking about the dead babies, which again, that's been debunked 100 times. And not only has it been debunked, literally the CNN reporter, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, the CNN reporter that broke the story basically apologized on X, and subsequently, you know, she did one interview where she said, you know, that was irresponsible of me. Somebody basically was telling me in my earpiece that, oh, we just found 40 dead babies. And so that's when she blurted it out. But then they never, to this day, by the way, they never got confirmation of that from the Israeli government, who was the one that said it in her ear. So anyway, that's been debunked 100 times. So many of those stuff have. I can try and find more on that and play it maybe in a subsequent episode. But overall, Netanyahu's speech was very divisive. It was very fiery. I've said it before. The guy's a great politician. He really is. I mean, again, if that is if you're on that side, he's absolutely the guy you want, you know, running your team for sure. I will absolutely give him that. But you know, he's really trying to create this division with Iran. I don't know if that's in order to, you know, like we've talked before, pull America into, you know, another war, another proxy war, or maybe a full-fledged war. But a lot of the talk was centered around that. You know, overall, you know, I don't know how it was received. You know, there were 58 standing ovations from the people that were in Congress in the session. I thought that was ridiculous. The entire thing to me was just such political theater, and I don't really think there was a reason for that to happen. Now, Netanyahu did meet with Kamala Harris and Biden on Thursday, and then he met with Trump. I think he met with Trump Friday or today, actually, or no, maybe he met with all of them on Thursday. But anyway, when I looked at the videos, you know, those both collectively, when he was with Kamala and then also with Trump, they were a little awkward. They definitely were. I didn't see. There was tension. I'll just put it that way. I really did. I felt I felt tension when I watched those. Now, again, that could be prearranged tension. It could be done on purpose. But, you know, I don't know, especially with Trump, that guy wears his emotions on his sleeve. I did not see a real camaraderie there. And we've talked about that in many episodes where, you know, I thought that Netanyahu and Trump were bros, and then came to find out they definitely had a huge falling out when Trump lost the election, and Netanyahu basically was the first person to congratulate Biden. Trump thought that Netanyahu lacked loyalty. He literally came out in one interview and said, F Netanyahu, that guy has no loyalty. I'll have to find that clip. That's a great clip. But anyway, like I said, I think that there was tension there. So let's see what happens. Okay, moving on. The Olympics start tonight. I think they've actually already started, but the opening ceremonies are tonight. I am definitely going to watch them. I enjoy the Olympics. I'm looking forward to swimming. I'm looking forward to track and field. Actually, track and field is probably the one I look forward to the most. But, you know, there's other stuff, and there's other like different sports that I would never watch, like archery and things like that. I'll see if I can catch some of that. But anyway, Olympics, I said something earlier this week. Again, I mean, I'm not going to take it back, but I am going to say that I hope that I'm completely wrong, and I hope we have a event-free Olympics besides amazing athletic performances. All right, what else? Oh, by the way, if you didn't get a chance to catch yesterday's episode with Greg Barnsdale, Dr. Death. No, I'm just kidding. But really interesting guy. He is an undertaker / author and basically made a career in the business of death, which again, I thought was interesting. I'm not going to lie. I asked him one thing, which was hilarious. I was like, what attracted you to that industry? Normally, I think I take this back to that, gosh, I forget the name of that one HBO episode that revolved around the cemetery. Michael C. Hall was in it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember the name. Anyway, most of the time it's like in the family, the family owns a mortuary for generations and generations, and so the kid goes into it. But with Greg, it was just something he was interested in. I mean, again, more power to him. I guess we all need those positions. But I said something which was funny, I thought, and it was, when I used to take our dad to like the urologist or the proctologist that deals with, the male genitalia, I always thought to myself, God, why would these guys, you're putting the work and time in to be a doctor. Why do you choose that discipline? I think that's like the last discipline that I would want to work in if I was a doctor. I would kind of have no desire to make my day-to-day life examining male genitalia. Not a fan. My own genitalia, sure, I'll examine that, but not other people's. Anyway, Greg's episode was good. I've got a lot of good ones to release this week. Also, I think on Tuesday I released the episode with Elijah Kallenberg. He was the 21-year-old University of Texas UT activist student that I just find him exceptional. I really do. He did a pretty incredible job explaining a lot about the history and backstory between Israel and Palestine. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that, that's another interesting one. Next week, I'm going to try to release two that again were two of my favorites that I've recorded. One was with a gal named Hannah Smith, and she is a Christian Zionist, or actually grew up a Christian Zionist, and then now, doesn't really have an affiliation to that, but she's really going to bring a lot of explanation and light to, that section of Christianity and Christian nationalism along with Christian Zionism, and then also talk about how that does relate to the Christians' unequivocal support of Israel. And a lot of that goes back to the Bible and the Old Testament in terms of doing what's needed in order to basically prepare for the return of the Messiah, which is Jesus Christ, for the Christians, and that has to happen in the land of Israel. So a lot of their support really hinges on that fact, not as much unity with Judaism, because ironically, Judaism doesn't consider Jesus Christ the Messiah. So like the most important thing to the Christians is something that the Jewish faith does not really consider. And, Rabbi Zeldman talked about that in the episode that I did with Rabbi Zeldman. We talked a little bit about that with Rich Siegel in that episode. But anyway, Hannah's episode's great. And then also I've got two other episodes, one with a guy named Jose Vega, who is running for Congress in the Bronx. And he is a very outspoken guy, young guy, but running for Congress in the Bronx, and he's gone viral on the internet several times because he goes into these like, I guess, forums, and he interrupts people like big time, but he's always spitting facts. He's always spitting facts with his interruptions. Like he did one with Kamala Harris a few years back. One of his most famous ones was with AOC, and that one garnered like millions and millions of views. And then he's also very well versed on the military industrial complex stuff that we've talked about, the Nord Stream pipeline explosion, the Nord Stream 2. So that's going to be a really interesting one. And then last, I might even release all three of these next week. There were a couple guys I met with they have their own podcast. It's called the Berm Podcast, the Berm Pit Podcast. Sorry about that. Anyway, Scott and Matt, really, really interesting dudes. These guys on the surface, this is a classic case of judging a book by the cover. On the surface, they look like the old school road warriors from professional wrestling. I mean, two big, thick white dudes, like guys that look like they honestly, and I said this to them, and I apologized ahead of time because I thought it was the case and it wasn't. I mean, they look like what you would think Trump supporting MAGA would look like. They really do. Like two big, thick, strong white guys. Think like 6'3" and, built like a brick shit house. And they kind of look like The Rock, two of those guys. But they're not Trump supporters at all. And they're not MAGA supporters. And then they're not Democrat supporters. They're constitutionalists. They truly believe in the power of the Constitution. And so they have a really unique perspective because, like I said, they're absolutely not Trump supporters and they're not Biden supporters at all. So anyway, that'll be an interesting one. All right, that's it. I just wanted to talk these few things today. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the Olympics. Get out, get your steps in, enjoy yourself, spend time with your family, eat some good food. Again, get those steps in. Make sure you are putting your health first and your fitness first. All right, everybody, call a spade a spade. Talk to you next week.
The ending was terrific.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You. Available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.